and enforcement responsibilities effectively. Mr. Chair.
Order. I call the honourable member Maggie Barry.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I rise to speak at the third reading of the Conservation Natural Heritage Protection Bill. This is its third reading. I've spoken at all the other readings, and I am a member of the Local Government and Environment Select Committee that has heard this excellent bill through all its very many stages. As others have said, this is a bill that updates all the penalties across the conservation areas and across many pieces of legislation with the sole and laudable aim of better protecting our native species, our flora and our fauna and our creatures. Jackie Dean, the sponsor of this bill, who's done a magnificent job of representing a local issue and making it relevant and applicable in the wider sense, has also been telling us about the geckos. We were shocked by some of the submissions that we have seen around what they will actually fetch in terms of the price internationally. There are considerable incentives for people to do the wrong thing, and that's why it was vitally important that we did an update on the penalties. After all, they haven't been updated since the 70s, much like the member who's whinging in the corner over there opposite me, who lives in the past. But this is a bill that, unlike that creature who wallows in the wilds of the Waimakariri, a seat he will never win again, this does improve penalties, and it improves things in a way that is consistent. Once again, something that's a bit of an unknown to the opposition benches. 6 key pieces of legislation are involved in this, and increasing the protection for most public conservation land and protected Indigenous wildlife and marine mammals, which was a positive contribution, a rare creature indeed from the opposition. These are the sort of things that actually make a piece of legislation that is relevant. It has, as a bill, enjoyed widespread support, cross-party support, but of course there has been some political points scored today, so I'd like to counter some of those. The Department of Conservation, which, if you were unwise enough to listen to the peculiar utterances of the Greens, for example, you would think is an organisation that can do nothing to protect our environment, that is on its knees and weakened. That is rubbish, like much of what the member who sat down just before me often says, and in Select Committee too, regrettably, but mostly in this House. But the Department of Conservation, I would just point out to those of you who are interested in the facts, that the budget for vote conservation is now $444 million. Which is almost double the $226 million it was back in 2001 and 2002. So once again, while there's a great deal of rhetoric from tired old Labor people, they did nothing much at the time. They went along with this one because it was an excellent piece of work, and even though they can't find fault with it, they still continue to try and stand up and bash the government around these sort of things. This is a government that is investing well in recovery programs. Across our national conservation programs, we want to protect some 35% more threatened species. We are also, as a government, intending to review New Zealand's threatened species management framework. These are all laudable aims, and they're also things that we actually do. We don't just sit around and gripe about it when we've already lost the opportunity to do it, which is what happens with the opposition. And it'll probably be a very long time before they ever get the opportunity to do anything about this sort of thing again, because they're never going to get the Treasury benches with the kind of antics that they're coming up with at the moment. People have talked about the flora and fauna, but I would also like to remind this chamber and to people who are supportive of this bill that it's also very important in the preservation of human life, and to remind this group here today about Rosemary Ives. That is a name known to us due to the tragic nature of her death. She was killed as a result of a bullet being fired without due caution in the wrong place at the wrong time. We all know, or if we don't, we should, that it is unlawful to discharge firearms at night or over public conservation land. It happens. When it happens, it needs to be punished. There is currently very little consequence on the statute books for such actions. This was something that the coroner in particular highlighted as something that he was aggrieved about and felt needed addressing, and that is in part what this bill does, because what happened to Rosemary Ives, that terrible tragedy, is just technically a breach of a condition in a permit. This bill changes the penalty for such actions from the current maximum of a $10,000 fine to a maximum of 2 years imprisonment or a $100,000 fine, or both. It is too little and too late for the tragic situation of Rosemary Ives, but it is significantly better than no change at all. So this bill, which has been ably led through the Select Committee stages by a very competent and able chair, Nikki Wagner, proposed by a very competent and able member, Jackie Dean, has brought together the very best of what needs to be done to protect our flora and fauna. The question remains is why it's taken so long to get to this stage. It is a bill that is fit for purpose, enjoys widespread support, needs to be passed and needs to be done. And, Mr Speaker, I commend this bill without hesitation or reservation to the House.
I recognise the honourable member Andrew Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I'm glad that